ladies and gentlemen of the media fraternity, and distinguished guests. South Africa, like many countries around the world, is facing constrained economic circumstances marked by sluggish growth and very high levels of inequality. A further massive constraint in our case is high unemployment concentrated around our cities, particularly as most South Africans now live in urban areas rather than rural areas. Finding pathways to renewed economic growth that is both faster and significantly more inclusive is a key challenge facing all of us, both inside and outside government. I hope I'll get paid for this. Nobody just works for free. I have rights too. Quite evidently, inclusive growth must involve deliberate interventions in both urban and rural areas to uplift those who live in poverty and squalor without adequate social and economic infrastructure, capacity and economic opportunity in the South African townships, informal settlements and villages. Creating jobs and reducing poverty are the government's top priorities. This is a transformative agenda. This is the only way to achieve inclusive growth. Growth without lifting people out of poverty and creating many more jobs is hollow growth. Transformation in the absence of growing the economy will also be a hollow transformation. At the same time, our government recognizes that inclusive growth that is about creating jobs and providing social security for the poor will itself leave a deep sense of social injustice among the black majority in South Africa, who equally aspire to become entrepreneurs, asset owners, and wealth creators. Anyway, for growth in South Africa to become accelerated, sustainable, and more inclusive, we need to create new growth sectors, create new entrepreneurs, and tap into the vast but latent potential of the South African township and rural populace, especially the young, who are vast in our townships and informal settlements. Cities are the growth engine of the economy, growing faster than the rest of the country. The 8 metropolitan areas in South Africa account for about 57% gross value add. They are home to 39% of the population and provide 50% of formal employment. Quite clearly, this is an enormous potential that we need to tap into and take advantage of. Over the last year, they created 64,000 jobs, while the rest of the country lost 175,000 jobs. Our cities are national assets, and their success is critical for national economic development. Indeed, for South Africa to succeed, our cities need to grow at a rate that is considerably faster than that of the country as a whole. Our visit to eThekwini today provides a useful lens for us the better to understand the challenges we face and the programs that government is putting in place to address them. Our largest cities have a key role to play to support job creation, and our cities can and must do better. As we have seen this morning, our cities are home to a broad range of economic activities, but also reflect the extremes of wealth and poverty. They are all struggling with deep scars of apartheid spatial segregation, which excluded the majority from participation in the social and economic life of our cities. Apartheid not only prevented black people from living in the cities, but it also placed poor working class black people in townships that were far from economic and social opportunities, with poor quality services, little access to acceptable housing, and very poor transportation services. Apartheid wrecked the physical and social fabric of our cities through deliberate exclusion based on race, the very opposite of the idea of a city as the meeting place of people, ideas, and opportunities. Accordingly, we are not treating cities as though they are homogeneous. We recognize the vast social disparities existing within them on the basis of race, class, and gender, and the fact that for them to grow and become the engines of the growth we seek, we must pay attention not only to the economy around the industrial zones and the CBD, the traditional economic areas, but most importantly around the townships and informal settlements, where most of those who are poor, unemployed, and less equal reside. Tragically, in our case, unemployment, poverty, and inequality have their physical zones and have faces. They have a race, they have a gender, they have a class. Since 1994, government has made massive investments in public housing, in basic services and transport systems to address this legacy. Despite the massive gains made in this respect, both public and private investments since 1994 have tended to reinforce apartheid urban development patterns so that our cities remain among the most segregated and unequal in the world. Workers must still travel long distances to their places of work, costing them both time and money. For too long, we have allowed our cities to be built on the 40 by 40 by 40 syndrome. 40 square meter house, 40 kilometers from jobs, with transport consuming up to 40% of household income. The National Development Plan points out that this is not sustainable. Not only are these extremely high levels of inequality and exclusion politically unacceptable, but they seriously undermine the productivity of our economy. The costs imposed on workers drive demands for a living wage. Commuting times take parents away from their children and contribute to pressure on the fiscus to subsidize housing, transport, and basic services costs. The extensive traffic congestion in the morning and evening rush hours are a clear example of this, and are also creating growing environmental damage. But we also see the damage to our communities, being confined to sterile, monofunctional township areas that become vulnerable to gangsterism and crime. The NDP calls for coordinated action by the public sector to target investments that will directly tackle the spatial development patterns and transform cities and towns. Changing the apartheid landscape of our cities and towns is a massive challenge, and one which we need to work together as a society to address. As we have seen this morning, large strides are being made to change the way in which we build our cities. Inclusionary urban economic growth is based on two pillars. Firstly, we need to get the basics right. Good governance is essential to the effective management of urban areas. Our cities need, one, strong leadership and impeccable financial management that can provide the framework and resources to make ongoing investments in our urban areas and build public consensus on the priorities for urban management. Two, effective investment programs that provide a platform of infrastructure and services that enables economic activity to occur and that encourages private sector and household investments to happen. And three, practical improvements in the investment climate in cities to lower the cost of doing business in our cities through streamlining regulatory procedures for getting electricity connections, registering property, and obtaining land development approvals. Secondly, we must directly tackle the challenge of racial spatial transformation in our cities to undo the legacy of apartheid through clear growth management strategies, plans, and programs. We need to change the development trajectory of our cities by creating high-density, high-activity, mixed-use nodes and spines along public transport corridors. To do this, we have to prevent urban sprawl, saying no to new low-density developments on the urban periphery. We need to invest in efficient mass public transport along these spines. We need to accelerate the creation of well-located multi-story and mixed-income rental stock in these areas. And we need to recognize that the location of informal settlements is based on rational choices by poor people and help households with in-situ upgrade wherever practical. Essential infrastructure and services should be provided in such a way that they encourage the agglomeration and connectedness that promote inclusive economic growth and development. An inclusive growth approach recognizes the importance of integrated and coordinated public investments in leading this growth agenda. This strategy provides the organizing principle for targeting and aligning government social and economic programs, projects, and initiatives in urban areas. Targeted public interventions are required to catalyze new forms of integrated urban development, and coordinated action is required across the three spheres of government, service delivery sectors, and in partnership with communities and the private sector. Metropolitan municipalities need to play a leading role in coordinating these activities to bring about measurable changes. Working with our metros, the National Treasury has established the Cities Support Program to assist cities directly to confront the challenge of our inefficient and inequitable spatial history. The CSP assists metropolitan municipalities to define and actualize radical interventions needed to reshape our cities, and provides the platform for coordination across the public sectors and with society at large. Part of this has been the introduction of a requirement for preparation of annual built environment performance plans that specify the strategies and programs to encourage development along urban development corridors. Specific catalytic integrated land development programs have been identified through this process, with significant investments under preparation and in implementation. What we are seeing at eThekwini today is a leading example of this strategy. The city, in partnership with the national and provincial spheres of government, as well as with the private sector, has implemented a coordinated series of programs that will radically restructure the form of this city. The full scope of public and private investments, from Bridge City to Wamashu, from the integrated public transport system to the Konupia development and the Dube Trade Port, demonstrates partially linked elements of this strategy that have been built on the back of the strong public management systems that have always characterized the eThekwini Metropolitan Municipality. In this regard, I wish to caution that, first, we need to create productive economic activity around our townships and informal settlements, so that economic activity around these areas is not based on spaza shops, car washes, and hair salons only, which have played an important role and continue to. But there must be sustainable productive economic activity which enables incomes to grow on a sustainable basis and circulate around, and for wealth to reside in these areas. Linked to this, must be close proximity of and easier access to government services, so that people are not forced to travel long distances to towns and in the process also spend their incomes on travel and the city centers, making township economies unsustainable. Secondly, we must be very careful to develop projects such as the Bridge City and the Reunion Station projects, at which the township entrepreneurs and black people in general have no role. And they end up viewing these as just among those programs that are there to take the wealth from them whilst pretending to be developing them. It is important going forward that South Africa should develop township and rural economic development strategies aimed at creating and tapping into the vast potential of our latent human capacity and enterprise in the townships and rural areas to create new assets, new asset owners, new wealth, and sustained and inclusive growth. This should be our collective focus going forward. I must end by congratulating the municipality together with its development partners for what they are achieving here. I am told that when we have an opportunity to return, we must also find time to visit the integrated informal settlement upgrading programs that the city is currently rolling out, and other investment opportunities that the MEC was briefing us about, which at the present are some among the largest and most sophisticated programs of their type in our country. Today's tour gave us a glimpse into the enormous opportunity we have to make our cities more prosperous and livable for all. With public and private stakeholders working together along a common vision, we have an opportunity to reimagine and refashion South African cities as truly dynamic and inclusive spaces. And I thank you.